Hello ladies, gents, and everyones. It is Thursday, December 2nd, and we're here to talk about this week's space and astronomy news, and I'm so excited to be back because I've been traveling and on holiday for the last couple weeks, so it's been a little while. So it's probably fitting that our first story is about a delay to the James Webb Space Telescope. It really does feel sometimes like this telescope is just never gonna launch. So if you'll recall, the kind of latest update was that it was supposed to launch on October 31st and it was delayed to December 18th due to an issue with the launch vehicle. Well, last Monday, NASA announced that that date is getting pushed back to no earlier than the 22nd of December due to an incident with the telescope. So this incident was an unplanned sudden release of a clamp band which caused vibrations throughout the telescope. So an anomaly review board was immediately convened to assess the telescope and determine if there was any damage. Well, last Wednesday, testing was completed and the board determined that the telescope was A-OK and good to go for that hopefully December 22nd launch. So now the telescope has received permission to move into its fueling operations phase, which is currently ongoing, and really looking forward to December 22nd. All of the fingers crossed. Speaking of launches, a really exciting one happened last Wednesday when NASA launched DART, their Double Asteroid Redirection Test. It successfully launched early on Wednesday morning on board a Falcon 9 rocket from the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. Now, DART is the first full-scale asteroid deflection mission, and it will be testing its ability to change the motion of an asteroid. This will be achieved by having the spacecraft slam into an asteroid at about 15,000 miles an hour. The target is the small asteroid Dimorphos, which is a moonlet in orbit around another asteroid called Didymos. Targeting an asteroid in a binary system like this will actually allow scientists to more easily measure the effect of the impact. And this is just a test mission, so this target was chosen to measure the ability, not because it's actually a hazardous asteroid. This impact is planned to happen at the end of September of next year, and this is a really important test in developing planetary defense capabilities in the event that we detect a hazardous comet or asteroid, and just in case Bruce Willis isn't available. Also, I think it's always worth noting in planetary defense discussions that the asteroid with the highest known collision risk, Bennu, has only a 1 in 1750 chance of hitting the Earth in the next 300 years. So this is very important, but it is not like we are in active danger. As much as we are all looking forward to JWST, we're still getting a ton of science and a lot of really cool images from its predecessor, the one and only Hubble Space Telescope, such as these images that it recently took of all of the outer planets in our system. Unfortunately, as Hubble ages well beyond its planned lifetime and we're now over a decade out from its final servicing mission, things aren't always smooth sailing. Most recently, the telescope ceased science operations and went into safe mode following the loss of synchronization messages that occurred on October 25th. To isolate and troubleshoot the issue while protecting the currently active science instruments, the team actually revived an inactive instrument that hasn't been used since 2010 in order to help troubleshoot. Now, when that seemed to go okay, they decided to start bringing the active science instruments back online, but they wanted to do this in a very cautious manner to kind of reduce the risk and the stress on these instruments in case this error reoccurred. They started with the ACS, the Advanced Camera for Surveys, which they repaired and returned to science operations on November 8th. Next was the Wide Field Camera 3, or WFC3, which returned to science operations on November 23rd. And now the Cosmic Origins spectrograph instrument was just recovered this past Sunday. So now 3 of the 4 science instruments are back to taking scientific data. The Space Telescope Imaging Spectrograph, or STIS, is still in safe mode. Now, the root cause of this issue has not, as far as I know, been identified. However, it hasn't reoccurred since they started restoring the telescope in November, and the team is developing and testing software changes that they can use for the instruments to better protect them in the event of missynchronization messages in the future. Speaking of beloved but rather old missions, the International Space Station. Many of you probably heard about the emergency that happened on board the ISS on November 15th. Basically, a Russian anti-satellite missile was used to destroy a defunct Soviet-era satellite, and this created a very large cloud of debris, some of which endangered the International Space Station. Astronauts on board the station had to shelter in the docked spacecraft for several hours. Now, this is a standard emergency procedure, so it allows them to evacuate the ISS very quickly if needed. Needless to say, this act was not very well received by the space community. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson decried it as an irresponsible and destabilizing action. And just yesterday at the National Space Council meeting, the Space Council Chair, Vice President Kamala Harris, called it an irresponsible act and demanded responsibility. This region of orbital space that's affected by all of this new debris includes not only the ISS, but many satellites, which experts are estimating will have to do twice as many avoidance maneuvers to avoid all of this new debris. There's over 1,500 pieces of debris from this satellite. It's really still being cataloged, and thousands more that are too small to even be tracked, but can still pose a danger to equipment and personnel. In fact, a spacewalk planned for Tuesday on the ISS to replace a faulty antenna system had to be delayed due to increased space debris risk. Now, it wasn't confirmed that this debris was directly linked with the ASAT incident, but in any case, it's a reminder that space debris was already a significant risk, and now it's just gotten even worse. But luckily, they were able to reschedule that spacewalk, and it is actually happening literally right now. Fun fact, one of the astronauts on the spacewalk, Kayla Barron, is a rookie astronaut, and this is her first spacewalk, and incidentally, she's a fellow USNA alumna, so go Navy! Roscosmos also recently completed their investigation into a loss of pressure incident that occurred on the International Space Station over 3 years ago in August of 2018. At the time, the cause of the loss of pressure was determined to be a breach that was discovered in the Soyuz spacecraft, a hole about an inch in diameter. At the time, the hole was patched with epoxy, which stopped the leak and allowed for future operations of the spacecraft. But the story hasn't ended there, as Russia has been looking into what caused that hole in the first place. It seemed likely to be a manufacturing or testing defect. However, rumors began to circulate among the Russian government that this was actually intentional sabotage and that the hole was drilled on board the International Space Station by a disgruntled NASA astronaut. NASA quickly shut down these rumors. They actually tracked the location of their astronauts on board the space station at all times, and so they definitely knew that their astronauts were nowhere near the Russian section of the International Space Station when this loss of pressure began. And they provided this data to Russia back in 2018. Russia, however, still seems to be claiming that it was a NASA astronaut who did this. And now that their investigation is complete, they've sent the results to the law enforcement officials in Russia, which basically means that they could be deciding to bring a criminal case. Russia's space chief is scheduled to meet in person with the NASA administrator next year. I wonder how that conversation is going to go in the face of all these recent tensions. Well, that's all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a good one. Bye.